This is still the conversation. Now, 5 Congolese opposition presidential candidates have called for a rerun of the general elections that were beset with voting delays. They claimed the Election Commission's decision to extend the ballot into Thursday for some voters was not constitutional. Now, nearly a third of polling booths in the country have not opened, and about 45% of voting machines suffered technical problems. As observers said this. Now, polling stations that never opened on Wednesday would conduct voting on Thursday, which of course the Electoral Commission said, and News Central has been keeping its eye on the process. Now, joining me to discuss this is Kambale Musavuli, analyst with the Center for Research on the Congo-Kinshasa, of course joining in from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for your time, Kambale. Now, just a quick one. How would you rate the elections in DR Congo so far?
It's quite fascinating that in 2023, we still are having difficulties in organizing elections. From most of the press now, I mean, including yours as well, as I'm looking at the title, chaotic is really being conservative about what actually unfolded. We're talking about 1/3 of the polling stations not available to the citizens to vote. We're talking about 45% of the machine, the electoral kit machines, not working. And you wonder why we spent $1.2 billion to organize. So I think I will use the term chaotic, but I think there was no election on December 20th in the DRC, and this is why some of the presidential candidates are calling for a rerun. We'll see what's going to unfold. There was an extension of the vote for Thursday, and when we're going to see the provisional result, it will either let us know if the sentiment of the other presidential candidate who are calling for the rerun was actually true, because even people from the regime, those in power, some of the people in the regime are also concerned with what unfolded on December 20th for the presidential elections in the Congo.
Now, 5 of the Congolese opposition are actually calling for a rerun because of some of these challenges. Are they in order?
I think everyone is being conservative. I mean, it is a constitutional right for Congolese to choose their leaders, right? And the Electoral Commission gets its mandate from the Constitution, and they get resources from the state to organize a free and fair election. So the chaos that took place on December 20th doesn't take root on December 20th. This has been ongoing for the whole year. So before the result, I mean, before we went to elections, we already had a problem with not knowing the voter rolls, right? Because by our constitutions, we are supposed to disclose who are the voters so that they know where they should go vote. We did not have that. We asked the Congolese population to go re-register to vote. So we had 44 million Congolese who went actually to re-register. That was earlier this year. And as they did so, within a month of having their voter registration card, their face disappeared from the card. They gave them black and white cards where literally the face and the name faded after a month. Those are not just technical challenges, right? This is an intentional way of organizing an election that's not going to be credible. So when you get on election day, you see that, and you hear the 5 presidential candidates coming together to call for a rerun, you can see that they are echoing the voice of the people of the Congo who are frustrated. Imagine someone going to the polls trying to vote, and the name is not on the roll. There are cases where people went to vote, someone else already voted for them, and so on and so forth. So they are echoing the sentiment of the people, and it is in order what they are calling for, but we need more beyond just a rerun. I mean, this was really intentional, and there needs to be a form of sanction from the population to the current regime that we can't have millions of Congolese coming to the poll, trying to exercise their rights, And then we have a situation where we really wasted money organizing this election.
All right. Let's look at some of the, of course, logistical challenges that of course, the process has faced. Part of it includes technical challenges where some of the machines, were not functional. Also, we understand that the election process started really late, in some areas. In certain areas, it didn't even, happen at all. Now, what do you consider the reason for some of these challenges? Vis-a-vis the election chief, that's the umpire, the chief umpire actually said that they were appointed late. Hence, they had to prepare in a haste. I want you to look at all of these factors and what you consider, some additional reasons for some of the challenges being experienced during the process. Do you suspect foul play?
It is definitely foul play. The president of the Congo has been in power since 2019. We are in 2023. It does not make sense after 5 years that we are unable to organize elections. And Congo has organized elections. Even in the 80s, we had local elections. Some attribute that to the size of the Congo and so on, and that's shared. But how did we organize elections in May 1960 when we did not have the infrastructure that we have today? So that's not the reason. The logistical challenges that they face is intentional. I'll use one example, which I've already mentioned. It does not make sense that the Electoral Commission spend $1.2 billion for organizing an election and producing voter registration card where people's faces are fading. This is what we are saying. That we are saying that there are Congolese technicians who are buying materials where the quality is bad and they knew it already and still use the equipment. That's totally intentional. And secondly, some of the policies implemented by the CENI, the Electoral Commission, where they say that, so if you have your card and your name is not there, we have a way to know who you are at the poll and you'll be able to vote. Whatever they told us a week ago, that if your card is faded and you can't vote, still, we saw the consequences of that. The consequence is that we had thousands of people, I could even argue millions, right, who went to the polls and found out that other people voted for them. How is that possible, right? So the challenges that they are presenting is not justifiable given the amount of money they received, given the time they had to organize. They're playing a chaos for over a year, and we are only suffering the consequences. The challenge now is if the status quo remains and they declare Felix Tshisekedi as the winner of the election, we are continuing a challenge that Congo has known since 2019, right? After the 2018 elections, we now know, based on report from Africa Confidential, Africa Intelligence, and so on, that there was a secret deal signed between Felix Tshisekedi and the incumbent president back then, the President Joseph Kabila, for him to be declared the winner. So there is still a contention about his legitimacy in 2019 being declared as the president. So this will be the second election where there will be doubt. Did Congolese people vote for him? And whenever he does not have the credibility in the electoral process, it does not have legitimacy with the people.
So are you saying that this process puts some sort of smear on the popularity of the current president?
It's not popularity. We're talking about facts. We don't know the result, right? Because I could argue, for example, that Dr. Denis Mukwege is popular because thousands of people came to his rallies. I could argue the same for Moise Katumbi. What is at stake in the Congo? What is at stake in the Congo is that Congo has not known peace and stability for the past 2 decades. And the current president, the incumbent president, promised in 2018 that it will bring peace and stability. That hasn't occurred. So people went to the poll to choose a leader who will reflect their will. We will know that if the results are free and fair, and indications already so far doesn't show that. So the popularity that's promoted mostly by Western media, right, that is likely to win, that is popular, is not the reality on the ground. Today, we even know, for example, as we are discussing election, the M23 rebels have taken over 2 towns. Today, we are December 20, 22nd, that he has not been able to bring about peace and stability. He has not been able to change the conditions of the people. His regime has been marred by so much corruption. And just last Monday, during his campaign trail, when he was asked by a Congolese journalist, "What is your salary?" he responded that, "I do not know my salary." This is the second time a journalist has asked him that, because there are rumors of how much he's paid and how it's affecting the nation. And I will end by saying, in that same interview, there was one pertinent question asked to him. The journalist asked him, if it is declared that he is not the winner of the election, what will he do? His response to the journalist was, "You should ask God what will happen." And they asked him after, "Will you accept the result?" He said, "Absolutely not." So if he's already from the position,
I mean, it's elections, right? I mean, his response might not mean that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be chaotic. It might just mean that maybe he might choose to challenge it in court, right? But I would like to, just add this to my next question. What does this reflect, of the kind of democracy in DR Congo at the moment?
You are calling it democracy. The Congolese people are in a path to liberate themselves since the assassination of Patrice Lumumba in 1960. And it's been very difficult because the contextualization of the challenge of the Congo is not clearly outlined for people to understand. Congo just had an election where the information you even presented, 1/3 of the polling stations did not open. We have 1.7 million voters who did not participate in this election in the eastern part of the DRC due to the crisis. In 2018, the same happened, right? So we have millions of Congolese. Every time we have this presidential election for the past decade, are not participating in it. What do they want? They want peace and stability. Who will provide that? So far, we've seen that the regime of Kabila did not bring about peace and stability, and the regime of Tshisekedi brought to us many promises and no concrete actions to bring about peace and stability. So our hope as Congolese people is that as we end the year and we get provisional results, that those who are running the electoral commission will have some sense to allow the voice of the people, the choices of the people, to be clearly determined. In 2018, there was an election. We are in 2023. We still do not have the tabulated, detailed result of the election. We have percentage, right? So we said that he won the election in 2018. We don't know how many people voted for him. We know the percentage. We don't know polls by polls. Is this going to happen again in 2023, where we do not know poll by polls the result, that we can compare and actually see what is happening? So that's what's at stake. What's at stake is a free and transparent election where the people of the Congo will trust in the process for them to continue to engage in the democratic process. Because when we don't listen to the voice of the people, we take it for granted. This is how we end up with Niger. This is how we end up with Mali. This is how we end up with Burkina Faso, where the people decide to take the matters into their own hand to transform that country. And my hope for the Congo is to be free of choosing the leaders without interference, be it electoral or be it outside interference.
All right. I mean, this will lead to my next question. What do you see happening post-elections?
Well, there were already predictions on electoral violence on December 20th. And the Congolese people have shown the world that that's not what we are going to do, right? So there are always this prediction about what the Congolese people will do. The Congolese went in millions to vote. They've been disappointed about what is unfolding. What we know is that Denis Kadima, the head of the Electoral Commission, is pledging to provide the result before New Year's Day. So we will see what those results will be. We know that the opposition, specifically 5 presidential candidates, have created a bloc calling for a rerun of the election. It will really be now a struggle between the people with their sweat and their feet on the ground, organizing to put pressure on the Congolese government to do right this time. And that contention, we'll see actually the effect. It's hard to actually tell what will happen. My hope is that this election should be the last election where Congolese are not able to choose their leaders. And that the Congolese, if they do not, they are not able to choose their leaders, they will exercise the constitutional right. Article 64 of the Congolese Constitution gives the right to every single Congolese to organize against any person, any group of individuals who are literally destroying the country and taking state institutions. That is part of our constitution. And that is the hope that I have, that Congolese will fight to transform the country and choose their own leader.
All right, now let's talk about, should this entire process be over, I mean, the results are declared, whoever emerges president, right? What do you think is the biggest challenge the incoming president should tackle for the Congolese people?
Peace and security is the #1 challenge that is in most of the Congolese in our head. You know that the Congo, for the past 2 decades, we have lost over 6 million Congolese due to the conflict in the Congo. So that's the most pressing issue that any leader being declared the winner should tackle to bring about peace and stability. The International Organization of Migration just last November published a report saying that 7.1 million Congolese have been internally displaced due to the fighting of militias, mostly backed by outside actors, particularly Rwanda and Uganda. So this report shows, right, I just said 7 million, it's almost 6 times the population of Gabon as a country, right? That Congolese are not in their homes, they're being displaced, living in inhumane and bestial conditions, while in the west of the country, politicians are making $21,000 a month. Specifically, I'm speaking about the MPs. So tackling the security issue to bring about stability in the DRC is the major concern of the Congolese today.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Kambale Musavuli, analyst with the Center for Research on the DR Congo-Kinshasa, all the way from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.